Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us this morning on the Adjusters247.com News and Views for Claims Professionals webinar. This was our weekly webinar that covering the past week's podcasts, and we're going to have a discussion of any questions or suggestions that you might have. And today, we're going to have our training session that's going to be on the handling of water loss claims, and we have a bunch of material we'll go through with that, and like I said, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Here's our agenda for today's webinar. At first, I'm going to go and talk about an overview of Adjusters247.com, and then I'll give you some information about our podcast and how to listen and download the podcast. I'll also share with you some blog post information and how you can reach us on the social media. And then we'll also talk about email requests to Adjusters247.com, and then we'll move into our training segment on handling water loss claims. If you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A period at the end of the presentation of the material. If you have a question during the webinar itself, you can utilize the question mark tool or the question tool on the GoToWebinar screen that you have, and send me questions during the webinar, and I'll be more than happy to answer those as we go along. But at the end, I'm going to open up the sound and unmute everybody, and that way you can go and ask your questions in an open discussion about stuff that we covered today, stuff that we covered last week, anything that's on your mind that you need to get an answer to. Feel free to go and save that for our Q&A period, and I'll be more than happy to address all of those issues at that point. But what I'd like to start off with each week is a overview of Adjusters 24/7. We have a lot of people on the webinar today, and I see a bunch of new faces and names on the list of people that are attending today, and not everybody's familiar with everything that we do and why we do it. So I'd like to start off with a little bit of an overview. It'll only take a few minutes, and then we'll get right into the training material. Adjusters247.com is dedicated to providing claims professionals the information that they need to be more efficient and proficient in their chosen career. In my 32 years of being in the insurance claims business, I learned that a highly trained, better trained adjuster or claims professional is going to lead to an increase in QA scores. It will lower cycle times, and it's going to overall improve customer service, which is good for not only the insureds but for the clients as well. And in my experience, I've always learned that the more efficient adjusters always end up getting the work. They get the calls first to get deployed, and then in my career, I always got asked to do cleanup because of the way that I stayed organized and I showed that I could handle a workload. And that's what we intend to do with Adjusters 24/7, is make sure that you have that information and can learn from that experience. And regardless of your position or your level of experience, the material we discuss in each podcast will help all of us be better in our everyday lives. I'm going to go through the format of the podcast here in just a couple of minutes for those of you who haven't started listening to it yet or are just getting into it. But in addition to our daily podcast and the weekly training webinars that we do, like this one, Adjusters 24/7 provides a weekly newsletter and a daily blog post that we distribute all of our information with. And all of those can be found on our website. And if you haven't been to our website yet, it is a lot of information in a space that we try to go and make as user-friendly as possible. The information that we have on here starts right on our homepage, where we give a little bit of information about what we do, and then we also go and have links on our homepage for just about everything that you can use to get in contact with us, including clicking a button for our latest newsletter, You can email us any comments or requests from right here. You can sign up for the blog post RSS right from the homepage here, and then signing up for the webinar on our home screen. And we're going to have additional webinars that we'll be doing that are going to be in addition to our weekly training webinar, and this is where you'll be able to find the link to connect to those webinars and that extra training as well. All of our social media sites, the easy button links are right here, and then you can always go to Stitcher, Google Play, or iTunes here right from our homepage to access the latest podcasts and the libraries to go and listen to any of the prior podcasts that we've had. And we're up to our 40th one as of yesterday, so there's quite a bunch there. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, I would suggest you click on this little tab here and send us your name and your email address so that you can be included in our weekly newsletter. There's a lot of information that's on the newsletter and different things that are pertinent to the insurance industry, and you'll also be able to find on our homepage a schedule of the upcoming events. We are going to be scheduling training classes and certification classes. Those will begin sometime around the middle of April, but we'll start scheduling those in the next couple of weeks. So when we do that, you'll find that information here on the home screen. And if you ever have a question or a comment or any feedback whatsoever, even a suggestion for a topic you want us to cover in a future podcast, feel free to go and send us a note from the home screen here. And that way we can go and get that into the programming and make sure that we have everything available there for you, so it'll go and help in your chosen career to get the information that you need. There's information on our website, including the media resources tab, which all of the media that we do, including the prior webinars, any posts that we've sent out, are going to be listed here as well. And then from this screen, you can also access the iTunes library that has all of our prior podcasts there, as well as our current one that you can always go and download. And all this information is going to be available right from our media resources page. And then on our important links page, we have some information tracking weather, and we also make sure that everybody can get in touch with our affiliates, and you can do that through the important links tab of our website page. And then at the very right of the menu is our Adjusters blog, and I'll go over that in just a little bit so that you can see all that's involved with that. But like I said, the website itself has a lot of information. The podcast is formatted always in the same way, so that we can go and meet the needs of every claims professional, regardless of your experience or the position that you're in. We try to have a little bit of something for everybody in the podcast. And we always start off with an introduction and who's going to be on the show that day and what we're going to be discussing. Then we move into a severe weather update with storm reports from around the country. And when we do these storm reports, we make sure that, and also with our storm tips and our catastrophe operations segment, we discuss any current deployments that are going on or are planned to happen as a result of the severe weather. And then we also offer pre and post-storm tips. And we have reports from people that are out in the field that are currently working storms, and they can kind of give us the lay of the land of what they're seeing, where the lodging is available. We'll get information on any storm-specific information that they can offer right from ground zero, wherever something might be occurring. And then we move into our claim industry news, and we always have a discussion about whatever is relevant in the industry at that time. We also list any job opportunities for daily or CAD or workers' comp or anything that we hear of. We'll go and address it during that segment. And then we move into our Adjusting 101 segment, where we offer guidance for our newer adjusters, or as a refresher for those that may not have been out in the field for a while. It's easy to forget some of the basics, but if you don't have the basics, you're going to have a hard time going and keeping up with everything that's going on. So we want to make sure that we address all of those issues. This prior week, because of hail season and everything, we focused a lot on handling hail claims and making sure that the adjusters, regardless of their experience, were getting the information on current repair techniques, and we covered metal roofing and a lot of different types of materials and things dealing with things that you might run into on a hailstorm, and that's what we focused on primarily in that segment this week. And then we move into our seasoned adjuster time, where we discuss policies, procedures, and technology. And even for adjusters that have been out in the field for a while, or have experience, as much experience as I do, I learn something new every single day in this business, and I want to make sure that I stay up on the current trends and the current techniques that are going on out there, and I pass all that information along in this segment. And we want to make sure that our more seasoned adjusters don't fall behind in the times and get left behind with all the technology changes that are going on out there. There's always new programs, new procedures. The computer is constantly coming up with new ways for us to be advanced, and we keep up on all those things, and we share it in that segment. And then we move into our time management and organizational tips and tricks, and we gear that towards management and staff. That way the adjusters, managers, we not only do the time management and organizational management, but we get into stress management as well, and we offer different techniques that we've seen and different articles that I get, and I pass that information on to the listeners so that you can benefit from those materials as well. And then we have what we call our reality check segment, and that's where we share our successes and setbacks so that everybody can learn from those mistakes and can also have a realistic idea of the benefits of this great industry that we're in. And we make sure that we kind of keep it lighthearted, but it's all true. And a lot of people don't realize until after they've gone through it themselves just how difficult this business can be. And if you're not prepared for it, it can be a shock, like deploying to your first storm and having to sleep in your car for 2 weeks because there's no lodging around, and living off of Red Cross meals and bathing in a gas station bathroom. That's the type of stuff I've gone through, and a lot of adjusters have gone through, and we share those stories, and we try to make sure that everybody's as prepared as possible to deal with those things if it does happen to you. And then at the show ending, we answer any questions that we received, and make sure that everybody has the answers that they need. And then we discuss any upcoming events and certification classes, and share all of the social media and the ways to contact us at Adjusters247.com. And then once the show is produced, then we go and we upload all that to our hosting site, and within minutes our RSS feed goes out to everybody, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. We're also on TuneIn, and several other distribution sites, but you can always find a link to us. And then once that show is uploaded and ready for people to go and start downloading it or listening to it, I send out a blog post to everybody and our social media outlets as soon as that is completed. And when you get the blog post, it'll look something like this, and it has a lot of the same information, and this is the one from yesterday, but it'll have a lot of information in here, including what we talked about in that show. I include the show notes in it, and I make sure that everybody has all the information that they need about signing up for the webinars. Also, the links are here for you to download and listen to the podcast right from the blog post that we send out. There's also the links for the prior podcasts that we've had, most recent ones. There's the schedule for upcoming events, and then information about us, and then we always have an opportunity for you to go and give us your feedback and share some of those things with us with a contact form at the bottom of the blog post. You also can click for our weekly newsletter from here, and a lot of the same information that's on our homepage is available just on our blog post, so you don't have to worry about hunting around for it. It's always going to be right there for you. We then send out the post to all of our social media sites. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, YouTube. As a matter of fact, this webinar and all of our other webinars, they all get uploaded to YouTube. Anything that we do electronically is shared with everybody that we have, whether it's social media or in our blog post, in our email list, our newsletters. They all get sent out. But emails and phone calls from the claims professionals needing guidance always take priority and are responded to immediately. So if you have a question about something, our staff is ready to go and respond and keep you up to date on everything that's going on, give you the advice that you need, and we make sure that you have all of that available for you, and we stop basically everything whenever we get an inquiry like that. By now you should have a pretty good idea of what Adjusters247.com is and how we do things and why we do it the way that we do. We also want you to understand the different ways that you can listen to the podcast and how to find us. I had a question that just came in about whether you can listen to the podcast without having to download it. Absolutely. You don't have to download it. You can keep it on one of the distribution sites, servers, and you can just listen to the podcast. If it's something that you think is good information that you want to go and keep for yourself, then you can always download it at that point. You also should have an understanding of how we communicate with our claims professionals that we currently have. Now, in the future, our goals are to expand the number of claims professionals that we reach. We want to share all this information with as many people as we possibly can, and the one way that we're able to do that is by having as many people listening to the podcast as possible, and we're also adding additional sponsors to the family, and we've got a major announcement that's coming up in the next couple of weeks that you're going to want to go and watch out for. This week's claim-related training is how to handle water loss claims, and I've got some material I want to share with everybody. But you know, to begin with, you know, we have a lot of people that are either new to the business, or even if you've been in the business before, you know, you have to just recognize just how powerful a source that water actually can be. And even though, like in the top left corner there, that's a flood picture, and I've handled claims after Hurricane Andrew that I had a 42-inch water line on the second floor of a house that I was handling down in Miami. And you know, water is a very destructive force, but there's actually more water damage caused by human events like corroded plumbing and frozen pipes, faulty machinery, and even rainstorms that come around regularly. And we're just now moving into the spring rainy season. But in fact, one of our adjusters once discovered an entire closet full of contents, dresses, shoes, and belts that was frozen into a single block of ice, in a claim that we were handling in the Midwest a few years ago. Now, adjusting water damage claims poses a lot of risk, though, and there's a lot of ways that you need to be prepared to effectively manage them after a major flooding. And one of the first things that I try to suggest to everybody is that you take special care to protect yourselves when you're walking through flood damaged environments, or you're having to work in those type of environments. It's very important that you recognize that, you know, sharp objects, there's live wires, there's a lot of vermin, reptiles, all kinds of things that you're going to run into if you work a flood like that's in the bottom left corner there. But you know, we're also going to have areas of dwellings that are going to be flooded out due to kitchen pipe bursts and plumbing repairs that haven't been made, and safety is always job number one when you're dealing with water losses, because there's so many variables that come into play. Some of those variables, I mean, water damage is a very messy type of affair, a messy claim to handle. Often they involve a lot of contaminants. Rodents, other potential hazards are always going to be available for you to look at when you're handling those type of claims. It's really important that you establish safety protocols for yourself, and a lot of that needs to deal with the type of clothing, the type of mask, the gloves, the goggles, all of the things that you're going to need to protect yourself from these contaminants. I've had good friends of mine that have gotten deathly ill working these type of claims, and it's back, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have a lot of the information that we have now concerning these toxins that are in the waters, and it was nothing for us to walk around without any kind of protective mask or filters, and you got bronchitis or whatever, it was all part of the job description. But depending on the water that's involved and the scale, you need to definitely make a look at gloves and boots and possibly even a Tyvek suit when you're out there looking at these type of claims. When you do get out on these claims, there's a couple of things that you need to do right away. And one of the things is an initial evaluation. You always want to make sure that you try to figure out what the source of the water is, whether it's from a flooded river, sewer backup, it could be a broken pipe, and you want to make sure that you know what the water level rose to. Like in this picture here, you got a pretty clear indication of how high the water got. You want to do that in every water loss situation that you get yourself into. Always you want to make sure that when you're inspecting, you want to make sure that you always look at items that you might be able to salvage, and keep in mind the items porosity. That's how much water they actually absorb based on the type of material that they're made with. And you want to make sure that anything that's pressed board, of course, is not going to be salvageable, but there are some things that may be salvageable that you're going to want to go and pay attention to right from the very beginning. I had a claim at one point in my career where this older lady, she had a curio cabinet, and it had been passed down from her mother and from her grandmother, and she was very, very, I mean, the whole house was basically gone, and she was all worried about that curio instead of everything else that was around it. And when I identified that that was really her hot button issue, we got some furniture people out to take a look at it. They were able to salvage it. They were able to go and refinish it and saved it. And even though it was a $150,000 loss, the one thing that she really cared about in that house was saved. And you always have to be attentive to the things that the insureds are telling you, and the things that make them the most upset are the ones that you really need to take an extra look at and see if there's anything that we can do to help them. And that's all. That's good. That's part of being a good adjuster, but it's also good to be a decent human being when somebody's lost everything that they've worked so hard for. And anytime you deal with something like that, and one of the things that you have to pay close attention to is glassware and ceramics. Those have to be treated in a different way, and to be honest with you, I didn't hear about this until several years ago, but there was a trick that a contents restoration company showed me where they sprayed the glass and the different types of ceramic pieces with some cooking oil, and they were able to stop any further pitting and damage to those, and then they were able to clean them effectively. So anytime you see something like that, then we want to make sure that we do everything we can about getting a restoration company involved so that they can get on it right away. Now, non-porous items like children's toys, and if they're plastic and everything, should be discarded if there's contaminants in there. If you're dealing with a Cat 2 or Cat 3 water that has toxins in it and is unsafe, it's better to be safe than sorry when you're dealing with those items, and you always want to go and address that by getting rid of them and just allowing for it on the contents inventory form. The next thing you're going to want to do is a walkthrough with the insured, and room by room inspection with them, and helping make your trip through the dwelling for the first time easier by going and help give you a bunch of useful information that you're going to need while you're handling that claim. And claims pros and people who have been around for a little bit, you can collaborate on the inventory with the insureds and make sure that everything is accounted for and all of the things are documented, and any high value items that are less commonly found, like oriental rugs or original artwork, they may require pulling in outside experts to take care of. But you want to do a walkthrough with the policyholder, get as much information as you can, including the ages, the prices, where they were purchased. It drives me crazy, and it drives any claims manager crazy when an adjuster goes out and there's a bunch of contents that are involved, and all they do is basically toss the insured a blank personal property inventory form and tell them to fill it out and call them when they get it done. That's not good practice, and you don't want to go and get into that bad habit. We're there to be professionals. You're going to be including that contents inventory most of the times in your gross claim amount to get paid for that, and part of that service is walking the insureds through that process, helping them with it. They're emotionally drained from everything they've been through, and the last thing they need to do at that point is start staring at things and not knowing what exactly they need to do to get things moving along. You always want to document the item's identity and the brand name, model numbers, serial numbers, any information that you can possibly get on those damaged items. You want to do that while you're helping the insureds with this inventory, and not meaning that you're going to get the whole inventory done the day that you're out there, but you're walking room from room anyway, and you want to go and have the insured with you and give a separate page or 2 pages, depending on how many items we're talking about, for each room, and point out different things. And the high value items in that room, you want to document. You want them to write at that moment where they bought it, how much they paid for it, and how old it is. That'll help things a lot when it comes time to document everything and put it into your estimate. So you want to make sure that you do that. And then you also want to take that opportunity with that walkthrough with the policyholder to explain to them what the claims process actually is. Give them a realistic time frame on how long it's going to take for the process to get finalized. And you want to make sure that you get any and all phone numbers, email addresses, not only for the insured, but also family members that they may know or stay in touch with. Or, they may not be able to stay in their dwelling, so they're going to be getting temporary residence somewhere, and you want to make sure you have all of that information so that you can get a hold of the insureds if you need to while you're handling the remainder of that claim. So that's extremely important, what you get that while you're doing your walkthrough with them. Now, at that point, once you've done your walkthrough, you want to make sure that you diagram the site completely. And it's an excellent way to get all of the dimensions that you need, make sure that the rooms line up, and make sure that you use the same rooms in your diagram, the same names that you're going to be using in your photographs, that you're going to refer to in your estimate. Make sure that everything matches up so that it'll make the desk examiner's job so much easier to review that file and to make sure that they're dealing with the right rooms and they're looking at the damages. If you can make it more specific, instead of bedroom 1, make it son's bedroom or Mike's bedroom, or something that will go and not only help with identification on our end, but it'll also help the insureds when they get a copy of it and they know that you're dealing with Mike's room, you're talking about this. They won't know bedroom 1 from their son's room, but if you go and you explain it that way in your photos and in your reports, that'll make everybody's job a little bit easier. Make sure you take the extra time to photograph everything in every room. What I suggest to all of our adjusters is, and anybody I've ever managed, is you always start in the correct, proper format for you. Some people go from the floor up, some people go from the ceiling down. I'm a ceiling down kind of guy. I go and I look at what's going on above me, and then I look at the walls, and then I look at what's going on with the floors. But you always start off with an overview of the room that you're dealing with. Get opposite corner overviews so that you're capturing every square inch of that room with your pictures. Then you want to make sure that you start with the ceiling and you do the same thing. You get photos of every wall. It's important that you get photographs of damaged and non-damaged items, and make sure that you are dealing with a full observation and a scope that is going to help you put your estimate together easier. A lot of people like to use their photographs as their scope sheet. I always did my scope and on a piece of paper, and I took my photographs to go and justify what I saw. But you always want to make sure, and especially now with digital with digital cameras, you're going to be able to go and you can take as many photos as you want. It's not going to cost you any more money. You can use the ones that are relevant, but you want to make sure that you what's called freeze the scene. You freeze the loss by taking all those photographs, take plenty of them, because the minute you walk out of there, that scene is going to change. Either mold is going to start growing, or things are going to be thrown out and they'll be no longer available for inspection. So you want to make sure that you do everything you can to get the diagram, the photographs, and any documentation that you can together when you are right there walking through the house, and making sure that you have all the information you're going to need to put a good estimate together. And you also want to make sure, sometimes it's best if you want to use a voice recorder. If you're dealing with a lot of contents, if you're dealing with a lot of different items in a room, I've always had a voice recorder with me, because you never know if you're going to have to take a recorded statement from the insureds or not anyway. But I'll go and I'll take my voice recorder, and I'll have my notes for that, and I can always refer back to it when I'm putting my estimates together. Also, you want to make sure that when the inventory is being completed, that you are organizing the inventory in an organized fashion. And you can do that by items of higher and lower value can be lumped together in a way that, such as clothing, kitchen utensils, books, CDs, stuff like that, can be lumped. The higher value items like TVs or appliances or anything else should be individually listed with the model number, the serial number, and the price, and all the stuff, the age. All that stuff should be separated. You can go and lump together. Most carriers will allow you to lump together the smaller value items, like those ones I mentioned, and that'll make things easier. But you want to make sure that you put value estimates together with the policyholder. A lot of these lower valued items are going to be the first ones that they throw away, whether it's the clothing or it's books or anything along those lines. So you want to make sure that you are addressing anything to do with that item or that group of items while you're out there before it gets thrown away. So as you're walking through, you've given the insured, I always refer to it as, I'm giving the insured their homework assignment. Mr. Insured, here's what I need for you to do to help us move this claim to a conclusion as quickly as possible. And whether it's obtaining the documentation that we need on recent purchases, or if it's on big ticket items, or simply having them list out these different items onto their personal property inventory form, then you're going to have everything you need, and it's going to make you look like more of a professional, and show the empathy that we want you to show when you are going out there and taking care of those things. Now, there's going to be times when you're going to be looking at a claim, and it's going to be very difficult to determine whether some of these things are newer damage or older damage. I've got a couple of pictures I want to share with everybody now on a claim. This is a water claim down in South Florida, and this is what the kitchen looked like, the cabinets looked like when I came walking in. Doors were hanging off, drawers were settling and disconnected from the slides, and this is something that was claimed to be new damage, but when we started looking and getting underneath the cabinet itself and seeing all of the evidence that was there, the only thing new that was in here was basically one supply line that I saw, and it wasn't even all that new. All the other connections, everything else that was in here had been in here for a very long period of time, and the damage was very obvious, a long-term leak. The bottom of the cabinet was sunken in We talked about this earlier this week in the podcast, where it takes an average of 64 days for particle board or faced particle board or wood to go and start deflecting in a downward situation, and that's over repeated exposure to water over that period of time. So this doesn't happen overnight is my key. And you can see from some of the evidence that was there, these side panels and the back panels completely are gone, and there was nothing there to protect that cabinet back from just deteriorating, which is what happened here. This is one of the doors on that front cabinet. It's totally loose and deteriorated, rotted, and you can see the signs that that is not something that happened sudden and accidental in that cabinet. And one of the things, and I wanted to share this picture because a lot of times underneath the sink in the cabinet, you're going to have an electrical connection. And that electrical connection is going to usually service the garbage disposal and one or two other things that may get attached to it. Sometimes they'll piggyback off for a dishwasher, or the dishwasher itself will be plugged in there. Keep in mind, these are live wires, and it doesn't take much for you to realize that if you go and you're not careful. If it's been exposed to water, you got a very good chance that you might get zapped when you go to investigate. So you always want to use your cautious attitude when you're looking at these things. You find this in the cabinet, you want to make sure that you don't go and expose yourself to any kind of risk while you're in there looking at that. Again, this is a closer view of those connections underneath that sink. This claim, again, was obviously a long-term leak. This claim did have a public adjuster involved with it as well, but these drawers were completely loose from their slides, and we referred it to an engineer. An engineer went and stated that it was a long-term leak and therefore not something that was covered under the policy. This claim did litigate, and the insurance company did end up winning because of the investigation that we did initially and the fact that we had the engineer that came out to back up what we initially saw. But you want to make sure that you do a good assessment. You take as many photos as you can, and I took about 60 photos of that while I was out there. And you want to make sure that you address that every single time, because you never know when these are going to litigate. And depending on the area that you're in, you have a guarantee that they're going to litigate. Either they'll go to appraisal, mediation, or litigation. If you haven't noticed the news lately, South Florida is lousy with these type of claims. They're everywhere. When you get one, usually they come 2 or 3 at the same house. Like this next set of pictures here, this was that same house. This is a bathroom claim that was associated with that kitchen claim. Same thing that we had out in the kitchen. We have long-term leaks that are happening here, and nothing that is sudden and accidental caused this loss. So we were looking at documenting it the same way and making sure that the photos were accurate and depicted what was there and what wasn't there. A lot of times you're going to take photos that are not relevant, but it's always a good idea to get in the habit of making sure that you are taking as many photos as you possibly can, and whether you use them or not, the minute that, this is a case that sticks with me because I got all the photos that I needed, and immediately after I left, the PA had a contractor come in to start tearing out cabinets, and their idea was to get rid of the evidence and try to go and disrupt the claims process by doing that, thinking that we already had all of the documentation that we need. I happened to catch wind of it and got them to stop removing the kitchen cabinets and this vanity here, but they started with the floors, and they were going to be moving out everything so that they could go and build a case and try to think, and their thought process was it was going to go and help their case by having us only get the one opportunity to inspect it. So we got it taken care of, but you always want to take as many photos as you can, document everything as accurately as you possibly can, and whether it's related to the loss or not. And in this case, you know, they were making a claim for the sink, but there's tiles that were missing, and you always want to make sure that you um, go in and document everything that you find, whether it's damage or not, whether it's related to your claim or not. You want to make sure that you are always taking as many photos as you possibly can to either document the loss for denial or to document it for payment. Either way, you have to document and justify by having all these photographs. And like I said, you know, it's sometimes a photo of no damage is worth more than a photo of the damage. And even like this picture here doesn't look like it shows anything. It shows that there was no damage there at the time of our inspection to this area of the bathroom. And you always want to make sure that you address those things as well. And that is our water loss and how to handle water loss claims in a nutshell. We do have more information on this that we'll be sharing in the coming weeks and in other webinars. Topics that we plan to discuss this week in our podcast include any CAT deployments that we hear of. We're also going to be focusing on third-party liability, inland marine claims, theft losses, fire investigations, and we're going to add any topic that we get a request to discuss. We also have interviews planned with several guests this week, and some of them are going to be very informative and very helpful, and all of them are going to give us their insight on different parts of the industry that can help us in our everyday lives. Now, we also are going to be helping ACT expand. For those of you who have not been to Action Catastrophe Team's website yet, I hope you have a chance to go and look at that. They have what's called their adjuster information sheet that is part of their website. And that information sheet is what you need to go. It's very minor. It's only a few spots, and just give them your name, your address, your contact phone numbers, your email address, and then just list any current adjuster licenses that you have and list the experience that you have and the types of claims that you've handled. That's all they're basically looking for, to get you added to their roster, and then someone will contact you from there to discuss any opportunities that they might have with you once they have a chance to review that. So you want to go and make sure that you get that handled as well. Next week's webinar, we're going to have a workshop on claims involving assignment of benefits. This is a huge issue, not just in Florida, but in several states, and variations of it are popping up all across the country. Florida's trying to tackle their issue, and we're going to be explaining exactly what AOBs are and why it's so critical that the legislature this year gets a handle on the AOB issue that's down there. It's a crisis. It's costing a lot of money. It's running up premiums for insureds that are going to go sky high. And I've got a lot of material and a lot of information that I want to share with you on that. I did answer some questions that we got during the webinar, and now I'm going to unmute everybody to see if there's any questions that you might have, whether it's on anything that we discussed today, if it's on a topic from last week, or anything that you want to discuss. Now's the time to go ahead and do that, and please don't be shy. Anybody? Any questions at all? Well, good. We must have done a good job then of answering everything during the webinar. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today. Every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, we have our training webinars, and we discuss topics that were either covered in the prior week's podcast or that's relevant to whatever the current claims situation is. And we always try to make sure that that the information is relevant and it's current and it's something that's going to help you in your everyday life. Every webinar is live. There's no replays, and the login that you use today will get you into the webinar, any one of the webinars that we have. That login information stays the same. Now I'm going to go, after we get done today, I'm going to upload this into our website, the media resources page, so you can go back to it at any time and listen to it. and see any of our prior webinars are going to be listed there as well. If you have any questions or anything you want to discuss, my cell phone number, this is not our business number. Our business number is all over our website, and you can access that from there. But my cell phone number is 754-208-7049. That's 754-208-7049. You can always email me at tom@adjusters247.com. That's tom@adjusters247.com. Again, I appreciate you spending some time on your Saturday morning with us. I appreciate everybody turning out. We had a great turnout again, and look forward to seeing you next week. Y'all have a great weekend, and God bless.